Okay. And then with that, again, I would like to welcome everyone again to tonight's public meeting regarding the Reading Turnback Track Project. My name is Adam Kamoon. I'll be serving as your moderator for tonight's meeting, and I'm going to begin by sharing some slides and then turn it over to Sharon Cranston, who's going to go over the rest of the presentation. So with that in mind, 1 second. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to introduce some of our interpreters, interpretation services of this public meeting so that people who need them can access them. We have ASL interpreters tonight for the meeting. If you'd like to view the ASL interpreter at all times, keep your view settings in gallery mode. To pin the interpreter's video, click the ellipses in the top right corner of the interpreter's video and select pin video. You will need to repeat this process each time we switch interpreters. We also have the following languages for interpretation as well. We have English, Spanish, Chinese, and Haitian Creole. If you require these services, please click the interpretation, the globe icon on your screen, and select the language you wish to hear. Now I'm inviting our Spanish interpreter to introduce this feature in Spanish. And then our Chinese interpreter. Finally, our Haitian Creole. And with that, we'll go on to the next slide. I'd like to note that all MBTA activities, including public meetings, are free of discrimination. The MBTA complies with all federal, state, and civil rights requirements, preventing discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, limited English proficiency, and additional protected characteristics. We welcome the diversity from across our entire service area. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit mbta.com/6 to reach the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. I'd like to remind everyone of the rules for participating in this meeting, as well as remind everyone again that this meeting is being recorded. If you prefer not to be recorded, please keep your video off and your microphone muted. We hope that we have designed an online public meeting that will be interactive and provide an opportunity for us to have a conversation together. Before we can begin that conversation, I want to review a few technical aspects of the Zoom platform. You can view the closed captions feature and selecting from the options shown. Subtitles will display a caption at the bottom of the screen, and you'll be able to view the transcript separately, and it will also be sent out as well. You can also click the show captions to start viewing caption settings. You can click and drag the closed caption to move its position in the meeting window. And now I'll turn it over to Sharon Cranston for an overview of the agenda and some of the content. Sharon?
Good evening. My name is Sharon Cranston, and I am the Director of Rail Modernization Delivery at the MBTA. And I'm going to talk to you tonight about the Reading Turnback Track. I last presented this project in Reading in February of this year, and the community expressed some concerns about the project. We have taken that information, done a review, done some additional studies for you, and we're coming back with the results of those studies and those reviews this evening. So I'm going to go through the project scope, look at the alternatives that the community suggested. We're going to look at the project concept and the site, and then we're going to go through our noise analysis, our traffic analysis, and the air quality analysis, and we'll conclude the evening with question and answer section. We are going to hold all questions to the end, and Adam will be our moderator for the questions. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this project is to support the rail modernization program, which has an inner core concept where in the inner core you have service twice as often as in the outer stations. On the Haverhill line, the inner core is defined as Reading and inbound. So that means that Reading and inbound will have the 30-minute service, and beyond Reading will have 1 hour service. This is an improvement from the current service, which is 45 minutes from Reading inbound and 90 minutes beyond Reading. In order to facilitate that model, we need to turn half of our trains at Reading. Right now, we're turning trains in Reading Station, and this creates a service limitation because it's a single track. So a train cannot pass until that train that's been turning in Reading has departed and gone back into where there's multiple tracks. So by creating this this turn track, we're going to allow trains to be able to pass and therefore increase the frequency of running trains. This supports our goal of having a 30-minute interval clock face, which means that you would know, for instance, that the inbound trains are going to come on the hour and half hour throughout the day. We're trying to have all day bi-directional service rather than clustered around the peaks like we did pre-pandemic. We're hoping if we can build this track on the schedule that we have planned, that we would have this service in place for the new schedule in fall of 2026. Next slide, please. Currently, the ridership patterns on the Haverhill line are shown in the plot on the right. We're showing the inbound trips in purple and the outbound trips in yellow. You can see that right now we are clustered around the peak periods, but we do have some steady ridership throughout the day, and we do have a pattern of some reverse commuters. Going to this all-day frequent service will let us support more of those non-peak commuters, more of those reverse commuters, and people who are not working a 9 to 5 schedule, such as students, special events, medical patients. We know that employers in Boston are increasing the office presence, and our commuter rail volumes are we're at 96% of pre-COVID volumes as of 2024. Or sorry, 2024. As of February 2025, our subway riders are up 24% over a year ago. So we are seeing we've seen full recovery, and we are going beyond. Next slide, please. The way a turnback track works is that the train pulls into the turnback track, and then the train operator needs to do a turn procedure where we take the control of the train from the locomotive and switch it to what's called a control cab on the inbound end of the train. So we don't actually have to turn the train around, we just move where the control is happening. In order to do that, we have to switch that control and do some safety inspections, particularly on the brakes. This procedure takes time, and we can only do it one time in that 30-minute period. So the train will move from the station up towards the turn track, do that turn procedure, wait for a through train to pass, and then return into the station. It is extremely important for that procedure to happen within 30 minutes. Otherwise, we can't achieve our 30-minute service. This is only going to happen from 5:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. during our core hours. It won't be happening in the evening, and it won't be happening on weekends. It will alternate with the through trains to Haverhill. We're expecting about 8 turn trains per day. Next slide, please. The community suggested 6 locations or 6 alternatives that we gave a serious review to, and we're coming to you tonight with what our outcome of that review was. So we suggested having the turn track adjacent to the Wildcat branch to the north, to route the trains via the Wildcat branch, to have the turn track at I-93, to have the turn track in the existing station, to have the turn track south of Reading Station, or to relocate the station south from the existing location. Next slide, please. For having the turn track in the existing Reading station, it doesn't work for us because we would enjoy that, but it doesn't work because we'd have to fully upgrade the station. ADA requires that any new infrastructure we build must be ADA compliant. So by building the second platform to support the second track in the station, we would also trigger having to upgrade the existing platform. All of that design and construction work would take at least 6 years, and it is not currently funded. So that's 6 years after we've secured funding. And there are potential property impacts because we only have the right of way in the single platform right now. And so we'd have to work to get the property that would require to build the infrastructure for that fully accessible station. Another suggestion was to route the traffic via that goes north of Reading via the Wildcat branch and terminate service in Reading. The Wildcat branch is shared with Amtrak and Freight, and there's not enough capacity on that line to support the Haverhill traffic. All the trains serving Reading would then do the turn in the station, and North Wilmington Station would end up being eliminated under that kind of a service model. The suggestion to move the turn track to up by the Haverhill, by the Wildcat branch doesn't work with our 30-minute service model. There is a single track extending north of Reading Station, which is why we need the turnback track. And the time it would take for a train to go from Reading Station all the way up to a turn track by the Wildcat branch would be too long to allow the passing train through train, because that entire length of track is blocked until the train has cleared it. So it would create congestion on the line and limit service frequency. Also, that location, the turnback would be in a wetlands buffer zone. Next slide, please. The suggestion to have the turn track south of Reading Station would not deliver 30-minute service. We would have to offload our passengers in Reading and turn the train to go back to the turnback track. Then we'd have to turn the train again, allow the through train to pass, go back to Reading Station to take on passengers, and turn the train a third time. And we simply can't do that procedure 3 times within the 30-minute window. So you would end up with a schedule which is similar to what you have currently. The suggestion to relocate the whole station to south of Market Basket, that would take even longer than putting the turn track within the current station, because this would be a brand new site. So we would need to do environmental and property reviews that we wouldn't need to do for the existing station. It also shifts the station away from patrons who are arriving by foot, bicycle, and micromobility in the current location, and requires a full new station. And then the final suggestion to move the turnback track under I-93 would not support 30-minute service because it's too far away from Reading Station, and again has 3 turns. It'd be located in wetlands, and so the environmental impacts would be unclear. The substantial new infrastructure would be needed. It's not. This one's not south of Reading Station. It is north, but still, it's similar to up by the Wildcat branch, where you have the single tracking and it takes too long to get to that location. Since the second track was removed by B&M, power lines have been built within the right of way. So those power lines would need to be relocated, and that would require us to acquire property to move those power lines onto. So there's currently not enough land for us to do it in that location. Next slide, please. So our current concept that we have been advancing has the turn track located within the conservation land just north of Reading Station. This location there was concern that it is close to some features in the town, such as the Reading Housing Authority, Parker Middle School, and Collins Field. So that the conservation land location is actually farther away from those features than the current turn location within the station. So we are having a small improvement on distance on those. Next slide, please. The reason we selected this site is the line north of Reading Depot Station was historically a double track until the former freight railroad, B&M, removed one of the tracks. I believe it was in the 50s. The turnback track is planned to use that historic second track bed next to the current main line. So it's within the MBTA's existing property on top of the existing embankment. We extend 4,500 feet between Woburn Street and Willow Street. And the length is based on train speed, maximum train length, braking curves, sight lines, and track geometry. This location is further from the more densely populated areas of town than where we're currently doing the turn. And the construction will not start until the order of conditions is received from the Conservation Commission. Next slide, please. So the work that we're proposing will include erosion controls, which we'll install during construction to prevent sedimentation going from our work site into the conservation land. The top 6 inches of existing ballast will be removed and taken off site. And we'll actually remove any invasive plants that we encounter at the same time. Then we'll bring in new clean ballast. We will put in new conduit and signal installation from the existing signals box. And the conduit will be installed underground within the ballasted area. So our work will be confined to that existing embankment. Stockpiling locations probably won't be needed for the newer used ballast. And the wood ties would not be stored in large quantities, and most of the rail is already on site. Any stockpiling that is required will be outside Wetlands Protection Act jurisdictional areas if it's needed, and we will use best management practices. Next slide, please. After our discussion in February, we've added a couple scope elements. We're adding track pans, which would be underneath the locomotive. So that is a metal pan that we put a liner on, that the liner is maintained and replaced. And that would catch any potential drips of any fluids coming out of the locomotive. It also means that we'll be fixing the location where the locomotive will dwell. So it's always going to be at the same location, and the train driver won't have the option to stop closer to the homes. We are also proposing putting in plantings along the length of the locomotive. We're considering the native species arborvitae and or another approved species to provide screening of the stationary train. That will be with the approval of the Conservation Commission. So if they do not approve the species, we won't use it. The reason why we have suggested arborvitae is arborvitaes is it's often identified as an ideal privacy planting to provide that screening. Next slide, please. For other environmental information, we have reviewed the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, MEPA, and we do not meet any of the thresholds that MEPA requires a more formal review. And the locomotives are categorized as mobile sources by the EPA, and they're regulated as such, which is different from stationary sources like a power plant. The notice of intent will be filed with the Reading Conservation Commission. We did pull it because of our previous meeting, and we have been waiting to come back to the community with our updated plans before we resubmit. A due diligence review of other environmental permits and reviews was conducted, and no other permits are necessary for this project based on the current scope of work other than an order of conditions. Next slide, please. So to address the community's concern about noise of the trains, we engaged an expert acoustical engineer to come and do a noise study. He affixed 3 microphones at the locations shown on this map to the right, near two of the residential areas and one up in that new trail area by Willow Street. These microphones were calibrated before they were installed, and they are very sensitive equipment, and the data has been validated. Next slide, please. This is what the setups look like. You can see that we installed them in the spring before we had leaf cover to make sure that we weren't getting any attenuation of the noise, that we were getting the most conservative measurements possible. We've installed them with in coordination with the town, so that you'll see that they're on town land. Next slide, please. This is the measurements that we received from the Hunt Street noise monitor. The way these plots work is the purple bars are showing the window when we would be doing the turn service, and the white is the overnight hours when we would not be doing turn service. The two red bars on the left are showing when we went and idled the train. So we idled the train from 12:40 to 1 o'clock on one day, and we continued to monitor the next day. So we have two adjacent days, one with the train and one without, in the same time of day. We targeted midday because it is in the middle of the proposed turn service, but it's not during the peak periods when there's a lot of car traffic that could mitigate the noise that you'd hear from the train. So we were trying to make sure that we got a bit of a quieter part of day. You can see from the plots that there's already the noise spikes coming from the passing trains and airplanes. And you can see between those two red lines where the noise level would be from a train in the turn track. It is consistent with the noise levels that are ambiently occurring in the community. You will see there it is a little bit higher than when there isn't an idling train, but it's not a giant spike. And we'll get to the actual numbers after I show you the three plots. Next slide, please. So this is a similar plot showing for Hancock Street. And you're seeing similar trends with the spikes for passing trains and airplanes. And in between the two red bars is the idling train, and it's consistent noise levels with the surrounding time. Next slide, please. And this is the plot for up at Willow Street. And once again, similar trends. We're pretty sure that the spikes overnight are frogs because the noise monitor was placed in the trail area. And next slide, please. And here's our table of our data. So we're concentrating mostly on those two columns that are labeled 1240 to 1300. What those are showing is with test train, the decibels red at the three monitoring locations on the day when we had the train idling, and the cell below shows without, so what the comparative noise level was without the train. At Hunt Street, we found a difference of 5 decibels. At Hancock Street, we found a difference of 6. And at Willow Street, we found a difference of 1 decibel. So at Hancock and Hunt Street, we would expect you to be able to hear the train, but it would not impact your ability to have a conversation outside. Typically 5 decibels, less than 5 decibels is imperceptible to the human ear. And so that's all within expected levels for an idling train, that you'd be able to hear it, but it's not going to be an overwhelming noise. This does not exceed FTA or Mass DEP noise criteria limits. Next slide, please. Another community concern was the increase of gate closures that will happen with the increased number of trains we'll be running. We have many grade crossings throughout the system where we have frequent train traffic. Framingham Station on the Worcester line, as an example, has 3 to 4 trains per hour plus freight and Amtrak. So the gate closing times that we have are based on MBTA policy. There's an advance warning of 30 seconds. So with our control system, the the computer on the train is able to notify the signal when it's 30 seconds away. And that's when the gates start to come down. For the purposes of this presentation, we are only talking about MBTA commuter rail movements. Amtrak typically doesn't come through Reading. Freight operations happen overnight, and maintenance vehicles are also outside of this conversation. Next slide, please. So we looked at the Willow Street crossing, the Woburn Street crossing, the Washington Street crossing, and then Ash Street, Main Street together. The signal activation times are averaged from data that we took directly from the gate computers. So we were able to download the actual gate closings in order to get a picture of what's happening now, and in order to in order to project what we expect to happen in the future. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I'm showing the Ash Street, Main Street closures and the Washington Street. The top bar is showing the projected or the existing closures, the ones in yellow. So this is what we are actually experiencing today. The bottom purple is what we're projecting. What you'll see is that under the existing operation, we don't have as many closures, but we're with the change in operations by moving the turn beyond the station and by working to fix the train dwell locations and optimize the gates, we will be able to reduce the length of time that the gates are closed. At the Ash Street, Main Street, we're expecting to be able to save approximately 4 seconds. So once again, it'll be closing more often, but each closing will be a little faster. At Washington Street, we see the biggest improvement by moving the turn out of the station, because right now, sometimes the gate is down while the train is turning. So by moving the turn up to the conservation land, we won't have that long activation. So we'll be able to reduce the closing time significantly at Washington Street while still having the increased number of activations. Next slide, please. Woburn Street will have the biggest impact by the new train operations because we'll have more activations since the trains will always be going through Woburn Street, whereas currently they don't always proceed through. So we do expect an increase in activations, but once again, we've worked to come up with ways to reduce that time. And Willow Street will have a similar proportional increase in activations and decrease in time. However, we're instead of going from 45 minutes to 30, you're going from 90 minutes to 1 hour. So it probably won't feel as much of an increase. Next slide, please. The final concern from the community was air quality. One thing that we are already in progress doing for our entire commuter rail network is changing our fuel source. So we have completed a pilot and are beginning to do the upgrades of infrastructure to switch to a renewable diesel product. This renewable diesel product is renewable, which is wonderful for the environment, but also has better emissions across the board, with the exception of nitrous oxide. The ones on the right, the particulate matter, those are the ones that you're really concerned about for asthma. So you can see that we're greatly reducing those particulate matter pollutants with this renewable diesel. Even with the current fuels, we are well below EPA thresholds. So while we will be increasing the nitrous oxide, we're still only 20% of the threshold. And across the board, the emissions are significantly lower with this renewable diesel. Next slide, please. So, Adam, I lost my slide. So in conclusion, the increased service will not exceed the federal NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act, or FTA standards, the state standards with Mass DEP, or NEPA, or the MBTA thresholds for environmental impacts. The MBTA has performed these analyses to address the concerns of the community that you raised at the public meeting in February. The other locations in Reading are not viable in order to support the 30-minute service. And this project will support the long-term improvements for the line, which eventually will include double tracking all the way up to Haverhill. And that will, when we do that, that will include this turnback track that we are proposing to build. Thank you very much. And Adam, I think we're ready for questions.
Thank you, Sharon. For questions, I ask you that you raise your hand. Use the raise hand feature located on the bottom of your screen, and then I will mute you and call on folks in the order that we receive questions. Kindly, in order to get through all or as many questions as we can in the span of this time, we ask you to kindly limit your questions to 2 minutes per person or comments, and we'd be happy to those questions. I'm also asking Sharon and the team to keep their responses short and sweet and to the point, so that we can get through as many folks as possible in the allotted time. So with that, Jay Gallagher, I'm going to ask to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Perfect. So I guess I have maybe a couple of questions, observations that I would like to hear a little more about. I guess one being the turn time, because currently turns are more or less around 10 minutes, I believe. And why are we predicting 30 minutes instead of 10? Secondly,
sorry.
Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
I was going to say that's to support the service. In order to make, so it's a combination of the amount of time to turn the train and needing to allow the through train to pass.
But if the turns were shorter, like they are currently, couldn't you support the 30-minute service without having to do all that?
The problem is the passing beyond Reading. So it's like how it's essentially one lane road beyond Reading. So a train needs to go all the way up to where there's 2 tracks in order to send other train the opposite direction.
But in pre-COVID days, that's almost how it was. There would be a train in Reading turning back to Boston, another train holding short of where Market Basket was. The train would go back into Reading, or into Boston rather, and then the other train would keep going to Haverhill. And they did that pretty efficiently with like 10-minute turns in the station up until COVID.
I don't have the pre-COVID schedules in front of me. I would have to get back to you, but my understanding is that, oh, go ahead out there.
Yeah, sorry, I got off mute. So pre-COVID, it wasn't an all-day service. So that's the critical point. You can do that maybe once, maybe twice. That's it. So the key issue here, as you probably appreciate, a lot more work from home. So we're trying to focus on serving a lot more different markets, and a lot of the classic commuters have moved their times anyway. So that is the key issue of not being able to keep that going. When you're doing 1 or 2 trains, that's absolutely fine. And yeah, you can do it. But again, that's a compromise service. So.
Okay. I mean, I guess a kind of follow to that is, when you talk about the ADA requirements, like it would be helpful to hear a little more about that and why, putting a turn track, even if you don't even use the platform, right? Even if you just put a turn track inside the station and don't even use the platform, so you don't have to upgrade anything, why wouldn't that be a viable option? And then also, too, in the longer term, if you're planning to double track all the way through to Haverhill anyhow, wouldn't that trigger all the ADA upgrades that we're avoiding right now either way?
So I'll try and get all the points you got there. So 1, turn track in the station, you still need to let the passengers off. So you need a second platform. We actually, and I mentioned it to some of your colleagues, and the previous meeting, we did look, that was our original option. And that was our original survey, and we came up with this issue that we can't turn in the station. So A, because of noise, B, because of needing that second platform. So that's that one. Second one, in terms of double tracking, yes, we will have that AD issue. It still is, and I've made the commitment to you and the town that, the Reading station upgrade is still on the agenda. It just takes a lot longer, and we would like to get the service implemented first. So it's a multi-stage process.
And is the plan that once that's implemented to move the turns back to the station?
That is something that we will discuss at the time. That is a longer horizon though. So as we put in the double track and build all the associated infrastructure, we will look at our service model accordingly. And it could be that we move the turns back to the station.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Next up, we have Chris.
Thanks, Adam. And thanks, Sharon, for going over that. So my name is Chris Haley, 71 Tennyson Road. I'm co-chair of the select board as well. So once again, just thanks for organizing this again. And I appreciate, hopefully we can keep things on track like they currently are, but who knows? I guess my question is, the way that you started off the meeting ends up having, you give the things in various languages, you don't discriminate, you don't do this, you don't do that. And just like the question Jay just asked about the ADA compliance, it's like, which one is it? Are you ADA compliant or not? Is the current existing platform that we have not ADA compliant, and you are just skirting the rules to not allow it because it's not in your future timetable, you don't have the money? All I ever hear all the time, and everyone can attest to what I am about to say, all I ever hear is ADA compliance. And ADA compliance only matters when ADA compliance matters. Even the town of Reading didn't do Stroud Ave, make that parking lot ADA compliant because we didn't have to, for whatever rules. Every single time, it's always the same thing. We don't have to do it. So I would like to know, is the current station ADA compliant? And when do you actually anticipate that happening? You can say the next 10 years, 20 years, 30. That's kind of where I'm at on this. I'm just sick of everybody lip servicing over this ADA compliance stuff. And we're just as guilty. So
the current station is not ADA compliant. It is considered accessible because we have put in the mini high with the ramp up. But to be considered ADA compliant, we would need to have a full high level platform with all entrances having an equitable path of travel. So if there's stairs, there needs to also be a ramp or elevator, depending on the station. I don't think Reading needs an elevator. So we would need to raise the where you currently have a low level platform up to 4 feet high. That's obviously a challenge for the existing platform because of the historic building, that if we move the platform up 4 feet, then you don't have enough clearance up to that canopy. So those are some of the issues to bring the existing platform into full compliance. We have to make sure that there's a fully accessible path between the existing platform and the proposed second platform. Luckily, because you have 2 grade crossings on either end of the station, as long as we keep those sidewalks ADA compliant, that would count as our route. And then that second platform needs to be built at the high level with stairs and ramps at both ends of the platform. So that's what a fully ADA compliant station looks like, with associated canopies. We need to have ramps, have canopies on them. So there's quite a bit of infrastructure that goes with that. We have prioritized trying to make stations that have no accessibility at least partially accessible before bringing every station into full ADA compliance. So that's where that mini high program that has been in the news comes from, is that Reading Station has a mini high. So someone in a wheelchair can board the train. We have some stations where it's stair access only, down to a low level platform. So those stations are completely inaccessible. Those are the ones that we're trying to bring at least to a certain level of accessibility, while slowly bringing all of the stations into full accessibility. Our long-term goal is to have every station on the system fully accessible, but that is a long-term and not fully funded goal. So we are going piecemeal. I don't have a time frame on when that will happen at Reading, simply because we have 143 stations, Alistair. We have 143 stations on our system, and that's a lot of stations to bring into full ADA compliance.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm going to continue on with the next question from the library room. I'm going to unmute the library room and then supposed to ask their question.
Okay. Can you folks on the other end hear me okay?
Yes, Nate, we can hear you.
Terrific. Okay. So we have hands up. I'm going to work through the room, go kind of side to side and back to front. So this gentleman can go first. I had a couple requests from people as they came in earlier to be nice to each other because things were not particularly nice at the last meeting. So my role here is to make sure that people stay nice. So stay nice. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jim Riley. I've lived on Hancock Street for over 70 years. I built my own home on Hancock Street in 1982 for my family, which borders the Haverhill Single Line and the conservation land. We live in a small, great community here in Reading that believes in the common good for all. This, and I'm going to say what I believe it is a proof of concept for commuters, not in the best interest of Reading residents. This proof of concept MBTA proposed second rail turnback track that may, quote, may increase commuter volumes at the Reading Depot, but will rip our community apart, impacting safety along with health and well-being of Reading residents. Our Reading Turnback Committee has offered recent documented alternatives to the MBTA that benefit both commuters and residents that with no need for this proof of concept turnback track. It is our belief that the MBTA proposed rail turnback track should be stopped for the MBTA to review our most recent concepts that will meet both commuter needs and maintain the safe health and well-being of Reading. That being said, one of the things that was discussed as an alternative was the earlier person that spoke prior to COVID and a while back, trains would come and stop at the depot on the same rail like they're doing today. What I'm asking is why can't the MBTA create a new schedule that would allow 30-minute turn at Reading and 60-minute turn for Haverhill using a new schedule? You've already planned the manpower, the equipment, the rail time, all these things that seem to ease this process so that the commuters' needs are met and our well-being is met. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So I'll pose that one to Alistair. Just some of the physical challenges that we have regarding trying to run this service for 30 minutes and 60 minutes with the existing infrastructure there today.
Yep, so I'll kind of jump in. The 30-minute all-day service, so it is the intention and the end result and the goal we're looking for. As you noted before, there were some higher frequency services on peak only, and that doesn't serve people who want to make alternate journeys from commuters, and the commuter, as we knew pre-COVID, doesn't entirely exist anymore, as we've seen from the demand. So we're trying to follow our users and their needs, which is providing frequent all-day service. And that is what this turn track's aimed at, and what, in fact, the whole rail modernization is based on, is the fact, even pre-COVID, the world was changing. The idea of a 9 to 5 commuter has diminished significantly. And if you just look on the roads, you see exactly the same thing. All day traffic pretty much constantly. And that is a lot of what we're trying to address. So we understand that's more impact on you, but as you may know, the railroad had quite high frequencies in the past, and those weren't just peak. And also had freight traffic in the past, which is no more. So I appreciate there's an impact on you guys. That is sadly unavoidable, but we're hoping it's minimal for a quite significant gain. And that's what we're trying to demonstrate. And, you know, yes, we can't guarantee it, and we're not going to completely guarantee any uptick in demand that is sort of huge or make any unverified claims, but international experience here in the US and experience on our own lines already has shown that moving to 30-minute bidirectional service has significantly increased our ridership, gives our commuters more options, gives you know, off-peak riders more options, and this won't be the first line in it. Hopefully, it won't be the last that will receive this higher service.
Thank you, Alistair. Are there any other questions in the library room?
Oh, there's plenty of them. So if we could stay here for a little bit, Adam, that'd be great.
Why don't we take 3 from the library, and then we've got a bunch in the chat as well and a couple more hands raised, and then we'll come back to the library room.
Okay, I think I'm next. My name's Christine Ford. I've been a Reading resident for 30 years. And one of the primary reasons why my family moved here was because of the commuter rail. At the time that my husband and I purchased our house, we could afford 1 car, not 2. Even though we are over a mile away, we both walk to the train station and walk back home. It is a necessary option for us to have as much service as we possibly can in Reading. Traffic is only increasing. I'd say we're back to pre-pandemic levels. I see the traffic going past my house. It's all throughout town. It's not just people in Reading traveling throughout to get to 93 or 128. It's people from out of town cutting through Reading. And that in itself creates pollution. Well, you know, we're talking about the effects of any pollution from the turnbacks. So, and I just want to say that we will be having, in terms of ridership, we're going to be having 1,700 new housing units coming online. Those are people who will be within walking distance of the MBTA and ostensibly will be riding the MBTA. So, you know, we're talking about a lack of ridership. I see a big boost coming from that. Lastly, I just want to say I think that the MBTA has done a great job. Been very receptive to listening to input from Reading residents. And I think the options that you've come up with are very good. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And I just want to say really quickly on the housing and the demand side as well. What we've seen qualitatively, and we've seen from businesses, and we've seen from other folks, is that there is a significant amount of demand of getting people to Reading now, right? Getting people to Reading to eat, shop, dine, go out, and some even work in Reading as well. So if we can get folks to reverse commute, to spend some of their time there for leisure and activity, that happens in the off-peak as well. And so trying to get those midday services to address some of that demand has been a significant shift in the way that folks have traditionally seen our schedule. So it's not all about just getting folks to Boston for their 9 o'clock desk job and then back from Boston at their 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., depending on how much of a glutton you are at work, ride back home. We've seen folks kind of shift, use it for eating out, working in Reading, and doing other things as well along the line. So With that, I'll take another question from the library.
Yes, hi. I live in the Densely area. I live at 5 Washington Street. I am the lead trustee of the condo association, so I'm representing 40 owners in that building today. I'd like some additional information on the noise testing. Your chart showed that it was at a particular time. Was there any study as to have that noise constant? Right now, where I live, I can hear that trains when it idles in the station. We put up with it because it's it's for only a short period of time. But I'd like to know if there's any testing, the testing addressed anywhere it's constant noise, not just one isolated or two isolated, where it's constant throughout the day. Thank you.
So we mimicked what we had a limitation of being able to idle a train on the active track. We had to find a window when we could block that track from all the traffic. So we took a train and parked it where the turn track is proposed and idled it there for 20 minutes. And then we also had recordings of the adjacent day at the same time to be able to have that comparison. So 20 minutes is approximately what you would be experiencing. So when we say 30 minutes, that is the legal maximum. But we need to be in Reading Station at the front of that 30 minutes and the end. So we would not be actually idling for 30 minutes. The 20-minute that we did idle is closer to what you would actually experience, but we couldn't idle for the full 30 minutes without blocking the actual commuters, and they would be very upset with me. So we did what we could while trying to do it during the part of the day where that turn surface is going to occur. And the only times we could do a long idle would be in the middle of the night, and I think we would get a lot of complaints if we were to do that. We did have we had a very well-regarded acoustic engineer do the study. He actually provides input to the FRA and FTA for their guidelines. So we did have the leading expert conduct this noise study, and he's the one who said, "This is a good study. This is what's reasonable, both in the location of those microphones, in the duration that we were idling the train, in the amount of data we collected." So we didn't idle a train for longer than 20 minutes because it physically wasn't possible. It would be illegal for us to go beyond 30 minutes, and it's not what we're proposing. We would never be idling a train constantly for a long, long time.
Thank you, Sharon. We'll take a question from Lucas.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
How you doing, Sharon and everybody else? Sharon, I believe I know you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I requested data before our 9th meeting. Before then, still haven't received it. Requested again after our 9th meeting with regards to the sound study. Still haven't received it. May I, or did Cameron send Adam my sound study questions? And can you put it up on the screen to share, or can I share my screen?
I don't know that we have them on hand, but I did have a conversation with our acoustic engineer, and we talked through your concerns. He went through and said that there was no adjustment to the data. It is exactly as it was recorded. All the equipment was calibrated at installation. So when the equipment has to be shipped from site to site because it's fairly specialized. So that was also limited when we could do the study because they had to have the equipment shipped to the Boston area. When it's received, it needs to be calibrated. So it was calibrated. There was no excessive noise. It had the appropriate, when we showed the photograph, there was that lovely fluffy cover on the microphone. He looked at the weather recorded for those days. It was actually not windy, which is great because wind could actually
So sorry
noise.
to stop you. I appreciate all that information, but since I can't show the public my document that I showed you all, can you go back to your sound study slide and I can describe it to them? Otherwise, I'm more than happy to share my screen and explain my concerns.
Lucas,
Adam,
just
can
in the
you put up
interest
the slide?
I'm happy to, if you have a question, feel free to ask. I just want to get through as many questions as possible in the allotted time. So,
Okay, so can
you
you
have-
show at least the sound study chart that you guys have? Number 1 or number 2?
Well,
Sorry,
he's pulling it up. Luke, if I can tell you that as I reviewed with our acoustic engineer, he said that all the trends he observed in the data were consistent with the environment for Reading, with a suburban environment. He did not see anything anomalous or anything concerning, including when we saw noise going up and down. He said all of that is consistent with his experience at all the sound studies he's done. So I heard your concerns, and I did go and talk to our acoustic engineer, and he had no concerns with the data.
Okay, so since I can't show my document that has a nice red line going through this chart right here, for the public that's joined us tonight, feel free to reach out to me and I can share it with you. But for the public, if you look at the 11 a.m. start, you draw a straight line through the approximate thick average there. Okay, and then it dips down during the nighttime, obviously, and then it comes back up, and that average hits roughly that same, call it 49 decibel level, right around the 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. mark. Sharon, I don't understand how your sound study expert can explain all of a sudden a 5 decibel level lower value average at the 7 a.m. mark. What was his explanation for that?
Unless we had somebody out in the neighborhood taking notes, we can't give specific reasons. It could have been somebody turning on their air conditioner or turning it off if they had it on overnight. It could have been lots of things.
It happened on all 3 charts.
He said that the trends he saw was consistent with what he has experienced in other suburban neighborhoods. He saw no concerns in the data.
So no concerns with an all of a sudden average drop of about 5 decibel levels from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then also
that's what he said.
Can you go to the frogs number 3, please?
Mm-hmm.
So for the public that is on here tonight, I've done some research, like they were mentioning the FTA, and I believe it's FRA. I reviewed the FTA documentation as quick as I can as a layperson. And if you look at this chart and you look, the FTA dictates there's a nighttime penalty from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. at night for any ambient or noise from a train or car or what have you. So I don't know how to, once again, I'm a layperson, how to apply that 10 decibel level penalty. However, with all due respect, Sharon, when you say that's frogs exactly at 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., which coincides spot on to this 10 decibel level nighttime penalty, I honestly am shocked that you brought back the same comment, honestly.
So,
there has been no
Luke,
adjustment to this data. This is as recorded. There was no adjustment. It was truncated at the ends to make sure we were showing the same window for all 3 monitors, and that's the only thing that has gone beyond.
So the frogs just happened to start at 10 p.m. and stop at 7 a.m.
I'm not a biologist. I don't know why. I can have a few theories, but I don't think this is the time to discuss that.
Yeah, Lucas, can we just cut to the issue, which I guess you're trying to make, which is you have concerns about the study. But I think I'd draw your attention to the fact that none of these issues are the times we're actually looking at in terms of the comparison between a baseline, which is 24 hours after the idling. So if anything, by some of what you've just described, would actually be making the delta worse between idling and not idling. So it is significant, but it isn't it's barely at the edge of perception. So frequencies are different, everything else. So I think that is all we're trying to represent to you guys. We're not trying to say this is all super super accurate because a lot of this is just demonstrating how tiny the changes are and how much background noise can make a difference to somebody's measuring.
So what,
That's
just
all I'm
one,
saying.
la-
Thank you, Lucas.
one
I'm
last
just gonna,
question.
in
If
the
you,
interest of
one-
time,
one
to
last-
just try to get as many people as possible. So I'm just gonna go ahead and move on to Kevin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you for waiting.
Thanks, and thanks for taking the time to join us. In everything that we're looking at tonight is data around sound and other things. The data I haven't seen is what supports the need. And can you bring up the slide that shows the ridership during the day?
The current ridership, yes.
Yeah.
So obviously, the ridership will look different when we have a more frequent service, and that we've experienced on our own system on the Fairmont line. That when we implemented the 30-minute service, we had an increase in ridership. And as time goes on, that increase continues as people can rely on that clock-based 30-minute service.
Can you give us some numbers around that, just for like a comparison from?
So
Yeah,
Sharon,
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it was a 19% increase within 2 months, and that's a short-term increase. A longer
Is that
term
19? Is that 19% over? So can you quantify that here? What that would look like? So taking say from 10 to say
so that was
13.
just a very short-term one. I think here we're actually looking at putting more ridership in the middle of the day. So
No, but can you just cover it with that? Let's use the known data and talk real riders. Just tell us, like, give us an example. Okay, if we're at 100, how many extra riders would we have during that 3-hour period?
For example, if you had 100 riders, you'd expect an increase to 120 with that 19% increase.
And how many trains would that cover?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
So is that 19 per train? Is that, how many is that over?
So
It's not, over
you
that
can't
window?
quite, it's not on a specific discrete train. It would be you take the existing ridership that you have, add in that additional ridership and spread them over the trains, because some people will shift which train they're taking based on the more frequent trains. And you will get some new riders. So you won't, for instance, there's some people who might be catching that 8 a.m. train who, once there's more trains, might say, oh, I'm going to go at 8:30. And then you get a brand new rider who's coming in at 11, who currently we don't have as many trains in the middle of the day. And so now they have that reliability that they can get back on a 2 o'clock train. And so they're willing to take the commuter rail instead of drive.
So two things we're expecting to change is one, to spread across trains, but in aggregate throughput in an hour to go up by roughly 20%. In the short term, that is a proven number internationally too. It is quite common for a short-term bump. For longer term, it a lot depends on how we fill in the middle hours in the day. So that is what we're aiming to do, and what we've started to see, which it takes a much longer time. We've started to see that on the Beverly route, which is the same one on the eastern route, as we call it, the Newburyport-Rockport line to Beverly. So that's moved to 30 minutes as well. Same thing.
So what's the increase per? So if you've done some studies, you're obviously taking out the rider spread, because that's not helping us. That's just someone saying, I could have gone to Stop and Shop at 9, but now they're open at 7. I'll go to 7. Stop and Shop doesn't say, wow, we got new people buying stuff. What's the difference?
To clarify, it's not a per train increase, it's a per hour increase, and we're saying it's roughly 20%. And if you look at that chart, if it's a peak hour, it could be as much as, 100 riders. If it's an off-peak hour, it could be as much as 20. So that is why it's hard to express as a per train number, because we're adding a lot more.
Kevin, we have
some
data that indicates the ridership. Sorry to cut you off, but I know you kind of asked about raw numbers. So we see average ridership for for daily riders on the Haverhill line, around 5,600 folks per day take the Haverhill line. And so a significant increase, or a guesstimated increase like we saw on the Fairmount line, would mean about 1,200 new riders, give or take, as that service increases significantly. Hopefully that's
And of
kind of
course
what you were
that's-
going for, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, can we, in Fairmount, where does that go?
Goes
What,
from,
what area does that cover? Is it equivalent to Reading, like from its start to finish?
it is quite a consistent trend as we see. That one happens to be from Reedville to South Station, as I described. Also the Beverly, which is quite similar to, though admittedly it does go through Salem, which is a high ridership station. So yeah, it's a bit different, but again, it goes through then on into Chelsea and some more urban areas, but it's a bit of a spread of ridership, just like this line is too. So, and clearly those numbers are for the entire line. So obviously it's not just about Reading, but you know, Reading does stand to benefit quite a bit with that increased service.
So in looking back at the data, if I go back to, and we keep using pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, you're down 20%. If we go back to 2016, I'm using, and I'm not sure the data is accurate, but this is from the MBTA. The overall ridership was 1.3 million. Now it's, I think it was 850. Does that sound ballparkish right?
No, that actually sounds too negative. So we have pretty much hit 100% of COVID on aggregate over a week.
Not from COVID, but from 2016.
So the numbers I think were related to 2018 is the number we've been using as a baseline.
I just want to get to a question just so that we can try to. So Kevin,
well, my point is, here's my point. If we're at a number, and I just went on MBTA's website today, so it could be wrong. It said 2016. I took April, May, which seemed like the highest or peak months, and I just said, how is it now? It looked like, and this was overall, so I didn't have Reading data. But the main point is this: you're adding all of this in hopes of getting someplace, and you're not making the case for it, other than internationally, we know, in Japan, it works a whole lot better, Europe or whatever. It's like, how does it work here? Is it a value? Jay brought up the points earlier. You could do it at peak times. Well, that works really well, but you're trying to make this a system that works more throughout the day. I'm not opposed to that conceptually. And in fact, when I look at like Anderson, which is 10 minutes away from the edge of Reading, you have the times aligned with Reading almost identically. It's like, why not make one here and one here and one here? Why not alternate those times? How are you accounting? You're saying it's for the future, but you're not accounting for other things. It's 20 minutes to drive from Reading to North Station in the middle of the day. Maybe it'll be a little more because traffic's worse, yes, but
I don't know if you've
appreciate
tried it
I
recently.
just want to make sure that we get to other folks as well. So I'm just gonna.
So I'll just make my main point. My main point is this: all the stuff you're talking about, noise and pollution, all that is really important. I agree on all those, but I don't think you've made real number case of why we need this during the day in Reading, and is it going to help 12 people additionally? Great for them, but can they use Anderson? Can they drive? Can they do it off scope? Can they go to Wakefield, which is 5 minutes away? You haven't made the case for the need with actual numbers that work, and you keep using things that are hypothetical, but it's not even close to, like, just give us real numbers. It's going to increase it by this, and this is why.
Thank you, Kevin.
So we can't give a real number. We can't count, say these 50 people are going to join the train. That's not how projections work. But this is based on a plan that was first brought in by the MBTA with the rail visioning exercise in 2019 and has evolved. And it positioned the MBTA in order to transition to a more all-day service as we were coming out of COVID, which is why our commuter rail system had much faster and much more thorough recovery than other commuter rail systems. So the proof is the recovery that we had on our system on the Haverhill line. The proof is on the Fairmont line on our system where we put in the clock-based service. So our examples aren't coming from overseas and from Japan. They're coming from our system. We do also use peer studies on peer agencies to help us inform ourselves on how we want to move forward, because that's, we can't actually experiment with our system without building massive infrastructure. But we are proved, this is proved based on our system.
Yeah, and then there are other sources. So the sources are forecasts, but the sources for the existing data are actual individual counts. There we have Knoll Station has gates. We have the counts from the gates. So we do have a lot of data. I know there's a lot of confusion about what are we comparing like with like. Problem is, historic service was commuter only, narrow hours of the day. If you missed your last train, you're driving. If you missed your last train, you're getting an Uber. Whatever it is, that's not the kind of service that attracts people. They just don't want to take that risk, so they'll just drive anyway. And that is a lot of the issues with that shoulder peak, and the fact the shoulders have spread. We now provide weekend service, which we didn't before. So a lot of these numbers look different, but that's because our riders are different. And they aren't just commuters. And there are reverse commuters we discovered when we were looking at the options of putting this station further to the north. It just doesn't work for those reverse commuters either. So anyway.
Thank you, Alice. We have Connie who's patiently waiting. Connie, I'm going to ask to unmute you.
Thank you. My name's Connie Quackenbush, and I am a former science teacher and engineer. I have some questions about the data that you're supplying to us. One of them is, how many days did you take sound samples?
We only did 2 days, one with the idling train and one with...
I can't hear her.
Is there something wrong?
We can hear you.
Hold on a second. Hold on, I'm so sorry. Trish, can you come back in here? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Can you say that again, Sharon?
Yes. We had 2 days of sound data. We had 1 day with the idling train and 1 day with it.
Sharon, I'm so sorry. One more minute. Can you come in here? Hold on. Can you come back to me? I have to get my sound going. It's important, my questions, and I appreciate your patience.
Adam, why don't I go through some of the ones in the chat while we're waiting? So we have Grace Walker. Her concern is saying that we're doing caught up into a solution for today's project goal and deferring a necessary station upgrade due to ADA cost. The funds that we have for this project are tied to track work. We do not have funds tied to a station upgrade. That the way that we get our funding is often tied specifically to a type of project. So I can't use this track work money in order to upgrade the station. So
and Sharon, just to chime in, Grace, I really love that comment. We're not against an all-day service. In fact, many of us welcome it when the time arrives, but we're asking for the MBTA to listen to the community's needs and focus on a new station. So doing this project does not preclude a new station. In fact, it helps us, the MBTA, make the case for a new station. To Kevin's point and to Kevin's question, we have to demonstrate that building a new station, something that is costly and costs about $50 million to do, $50 to $60 million in today's money, is worth the ridership. And so if we can organically increase the ridership through this smaller, much less costly project, like we've done on the Fairmont line, then that's something that we can kind of make the case to our legislators, our legislative partners, right? So the first thing that happens with the MBTA when we go to ask for money with the legislature, with the governor, with our funders, they ask, well, what's the ridership, right? And so building a $50 million station for as other folks are saying, the ridership isn't there. We're trying to spur the ridership so we can make the case for increased investment, for the funding of the track project, for the funding of the station, and for the funding of high-level platforms at all of our stations. So this isn't for us to get away from those commitments. Those are things that the T very much wants. Alistair with his British accent and things from abroad, like those things already exist abroad, right? And we want the very same things here and those levels of investment here. We're just doing the work now to kind of get the ridership going to make the case for it in the future. So I hope that this project isn't seen as a way of getting around doing that work. That is very much something that we want to do. And to the earlier point about federal regulations, we're just caught in a rock and a hard place in terms of what we can do within the scope, within the station, and the lack of funding that we have in order to fully rebuild the station. So if we can make the case for it now, we can hopefully get funded for a new station in the future, and not only have a brand new station in Reading, we can also have it be double tracked, and we can also make adjustments to service, right? And that's something that the turnback track is a piece of infrastructure. It is not a determinant of service. It just allows us to kind of have options in terms of how much service that we provide. And so without this turnback track, we're unable, or we are kind of limited in terms of the type of service that we provide. And with it, we're able to kind of give a menu of options, one of which is increased service, one of which is that all-day consistent service that everyone seems to be kind of excited about at the T. And also, hopefully, we can get some folks evangelized and hopping on our trains instead of polluting with their cars, or driving to another station and driving through other communities to get to a station. They can hopefully just walk over to the Reading station or take a or drive over. With that, I'll take the next question from the library.
I was just going to go through the chat. No, Adam, I just want to, there's a lot in the chat. I'm just going to go through a bunch of them. And I just do want to add to what Adam said, is that you can help advocate to your representatives for funds to rebuild the station, to do the double tracking as well. And we would appreciate the support. I've got from Trisha Kaskak. I see you, Connie. I think your question's the same as Trisha's here, though, about how many days were used to gather noise data. It was 2 days, adjacent days, one with the idling train and one without. And what we did to obtain a viable sample is we used calibrated equipment that is industry standard for doing noise studies. And we had an acoustic engineer conduct the study and validate the data. Mackenzie Ridings has a few questions. What determines when a stockpile is necessary? Whenever we have material coming to site or being removed from site that we are able to have just on time. So if you're bringing a concrete truck, it pours the concrete immediately. Sometimes with rail ties or gravel, we bring it to the site a little ahead of time so it's ready to be placed. Or if we've removed older ballast that needs to be disposed of, you may not have the truck immediately available to take it off site. We do try to minimize stockpiling as much as possible. And we do follow best management practices to make sure that it's done according to our environmental controls. Who cleans the pans? That is on Keolis. If there is a spill, which is unlikely on turnback tracks. That's not because we're not doing any refueling or any maintenance work. It's just parked. If there was a spill, then they would come and remove the liner from the track pan and put a clean one down. How tall will the arborvitaes be when planted? That's an excellent question. I don't know. I know it's the recommended screening plant, and our environmental consultant recommended them because they would be the best to create that visual screen, but I'm not sure on the height. What are the side effects of nitrogen oxide? They are a greenhouse gas. But as I said, we are at less than 20. We project being less than 20% of the EPA thresholds. And what is the double track timeline? That is an unfunded project. So whenever something's unfunded, I can't really give a timeline because we can't move forward until we have the funding. I would say it's on our medium goals. But the more advocates we have in favor of a project, the more likely we are to secure funding and be able to move forward with that. Trisha has another one. The data you showed for today at Woburn Station is not accurate. You mean Woburn Street, I presume? I called to complain about the almost 7-minute gate. So there, I'm glad you brought that to our attention. We will follow up with Keolis. We are pulling gate data to find out when we have these anomalies to try to figure out what causes them so we can solve them.
Thank you, Sharon. We'll go back to
The next
Connie
one.
with the difficulty. So go ahead, Connie.
Hello.
Hi, Connie.
Again,
You're
thanks
up.
for your time. My name is Connie Quackenbush. I am a former science teacher in the area and an engineer. And I do want to share my concerns about data. Sharon, I appreciate you saying that you took 2 days to gather data for sound. I was wondering, what kind of statistical analysis was put together to select those 2 days to show that they are appropriate and random in terms of data?
So when we collect data, anything around traffic, we avoid weekends. We also avoid Mondays and Fridays because those tend to be a little bit lower, and we concentrate ourselves to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because that's going to be your most dense, most representative days. I believe we had a Tuesday and a Wednesday when we collected the data, so you've got the consistency by having a Tuesday and a Wednesday of those three 3 days. When we can get consistent data. So that's how we selected our days. The time of day, once again, we're trying to avoid those peak periods at the beginning and the end of the day, because when you have a lot of cars on the road during morning and evening commute, that can actually mitigate the sound coming from the idling train. So we wanted to be within the turn service, but kind of in the middle of the day when there'd be a bit of a lull. We were also constrained by when we physically could get a train to be able to fit in the schedule to idle for 20 minutes. So there were physical constraints to when we could collect the data. And we had our acoustic engineer who does many rail studies. This isn't his first rail study, help us design the study, and he conducted it.
Thank you, Sharon. We'll go back to the library room.
Hi,
Any questions from the room?
my name is Joseph White. I live on Prescott Street in Reading. And I kind of see, I don't know if this is blunt or not, but I really see that there are 3 groups of people that are involved in this discussion. The T, who has a mandate to increase its service beyond 95, the ridership that doesn't want to see service lost, and the people who abut the train tracks who don't want all the noise in their backyard. But really, what needs to be done is a compromise needs to be reached to allow for the train service to continue. And what I would say is that the ridership is larger than what has been estimated, because I ride the train all the time. I cannot drive. I cannot go to Woburn every day to catch a train. It costs me too much. So I live close to the tracks and I ride the trains. But there are concerns of all the groups, and I think a solution would be more service during rush hours between 6 and 9 p.m. and more service between 4 and 7 p.m. and less service between 10 and 3. But that doesn't seem to be on your agenda, as the T has said. You guys want to increase it every 30 minutes, and I don't think that's necessary here. What I want to see is no decrease in service in rush hour periods, and because that's when people go to work and when they come home. So I think that would satisfy
the ridership. It might not satisfy the T, but I think the people who live next to the train tracks are simply going to have to accept the fact that there may be more train activity during rush hours. Sorry to say, but we need service, and I don't want to see it disappear. So thanks for listening, and I hope everybody can accept that.
Thank you. Yeah, and we appreciate that. And one of this, I'll turn it over to Alistair, but one of the things that we've seen post-COVID is a change in service patterns, and some of the demand patterns in the middle of the day has increased. So what we say is smoothing of the peak. So folks are using the T beyond just that 6 to 9 to commute, and that other half from 5 to 7 to kind of commute home. What we're seeing is a little more spread out there in the day. For example, if you have a doctor's appointment, or if you're going to use it for leisure, or if you work a retail job, or if you are a nurse, or you work a shift work, or you work a third shift, we're giving and we're responding to a lot of folks who are demanding different types of service throughout the day, and some shifting away from traditional 9 to 5 commuter. We've seen that throughout our system. We've seen some of the ridership post-COVID change that. And we've also seen that traditional 9 to 5 office worker also kind of do a half a day in the office, or maybe change the way that they're kind of working 9 to 5. Maybe it's 3 days a week, maybe it's 4 days a week. We've seen other folks kind of return to work as much as we can. So we're responding to a shift in that pattern, but we're also just trying to overall solve that by providing the most level of service that we can, partially because if you build it, they will come. We've seen a lot of mode shift, particularly on the Fairmont line, for folks who are taking, instead of cars, seeing that they have a train that they can rely on that'll arrive on the half hour, on the 20-minute mark. So that consistency eventually leads to mode shift, eventually leads to less cars on the road. So that's what we're working towards, and hopefully trying to get as many folks to believe in that vision with us as possible, with consistently good service. I appreciate the comment, and thank you very much for that. Any other questions from the library?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lieberman, 50 Pratt Street. I've lived in Reading and been a train commuter since 2012, and less so since the pandemic. But I want to follow on what Joseph said, because I completely agree that this issue of the midday service, I mean, there seems to be an idea that if you provide it, people will come. But I think every half hour is excessive, honestly, for midday. A lot of people are actually being forced back into the office 5 days a week, or on a 9 to 5 schedule, maybe with Fridays off. So I think that the model that's being described is a little bit more closer to the pandemic than what we're actually seeing right now. So I wondered, like Joseph said, if there could be some kind of compromise and you could get some actual better data. Couldn't you survey? Couldn't you tweak the 137 bus schedule? Could you provide bus service between Reading and Anderson-Woburn? I mean, let's think outside the box. Is there anything we can do that doesn't involve destroying a nature area, but that gives us some really good rush hour service, which we need? And as somebody who has used the T to get to doctor's appointments and things like that, I just don't think the increase in ridership, it's not a like daily thing. Yeah, I have an appointment at Mass General once in a great while, but you know what I mean? It's not the same thing as the people going every morning. And I really miss the more frequent rush hour service that we used to have and the better weekend service that we used to have. And that really needs to be prioritized. I'm not hearing I'm not aware of any great clamor for trains at 2 p.m., but I would love some better rush hour service. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And one of the things that I want to make clear about this project is that it does not preclude what type of service that we run. It just gives us more options to run different types of service. So let me repeat that. That means just because we build a track does not mean we necessarily have to use it all the time. We can also use it to meet the needs of a community, to meet the needs of the line. So, for example, we don't have to run additional service if we're seeing data comes back in 2 years or a year that just doesn't meet the needs of the community, right? The T needs to be fiscally smart. If we're running empty trains, then we can have a conversation with the level of service that we're providing, and if it's the right level of service that we're providing. So one of the things that that we do every year is twice a year we come out with different schedules, and we take community feedback back and tweak the schedules accordingly. And we do make significant changes based on some of that feedback. We make tweaks to the schedule. So one is in the winter and fall, and the other was in the spring and the summer. So this allows us to have more service, and it's not necessarily whether or not we don't listen to the community and make those tweaks in the future. So.
Adam, there's a few, I'm going to try to collapse a few of the chat ones quickly. There's a couple questions about how other stations had got mini highs. So there is no second platform in Reading Station. There is a strip of pavement that looks a little like an old-fashioned platform, but because there's no track next to it, it is legally not a platform. So if we put in that second track, it can't just use that strip of pavement. So we can't just pop a mini high on there and say we're good to go. It would be a brand new facility, and any brand new facility must be constructed to ADA standards. So that's why we can't just pop a mini high on that existing strip. We would have to rip up that asphalt and build a brand new, fully high level, and rebuild the existing platform, because the way ADA is structured, you can't try to be sneaky and say, oh, I only touched over here, so I'm only upgrading here. If you hit a 30% threshold of upgrading your facility, you have to bring the whole thing into compliance, rightfully so people can't be sneaky and try to skirt the law. But that's why we can't just pop a mini high on that second side and call it a day. We, in order to have the second track, we need to bring the full station with 2 platforms into full ADA compliance.
Thank you, Sharon. Sharon, I'll just really quickly, there's a question regarding a loss of service if this project doesn't move forward. I'll just turn it over to Alistair if you want to address that.
So in terms of this project, well, obviously we're doing our best to make sure that it can, and it does make sense, and obviously all subject to approval by all the relevant environmental authorities, which includes the Conservation Commission. So that's one piece, but subject to that, if it doesn't move forward for whatever reason, that doesn't preclude continuing service at current 45-minute headways.
There's a few questions. We have a few questions about older schedules. I'm afraid I would have to see the older schedules and do some investigation to understand what equipment and what infrastructure we had in place when that schedule was being run, because our system changes. So if it's if our track has changed, or maybe the other lines, if we were running trains down the Wildcat to the Lower line, well, now there's more service on the Lower line, they can't accept that traffic. So it's not, even though we're talking about the Haverhill line, it's not a line, it's a system. And I really can't answer specific, why can't we go back to a previous schedule without having all that information?
Yeah, and Sharon, I can just add a few things. So this line is not configured the way it was even a few years ago. We've added back in Grove, which changes the duration, number of stops. If you go far enough back, the orange line took one of the tracks, which is why we have a long single track section, which again is the other constraint on this line. That is something we can never be able to deal with, because the bridge over the Mystics only built for orange line on one side and ours on the other when they rebuilt it. So that's just where we're at. We're stuck with single track. So there are a number of issues which weren't there historically, which are there now. Also, as you've seen, somebody posted some schedules, they're skip-stop schedules, and we do not do that anymore. We do have some flag stops, which is different. So there are a number of other, there would be opportunities, but that just degrades the service for everyone else down the line. And, we're trying to be equal to everybody. And I'd also say one thing very quickly. I do travel off-peak because I'm traveling on non-traditional hours for a bunch of reasons, especially going to sites such as this, or heading north up the line to, well, various places, mainly Bradford, but which is the Haverhill layover. So all of those give me an exposure to the people that are riding. There are plenty of people riding off peak. They're younger. There are different ridership from the traditional commuter. You know, who is it to us to say we're not going to serve them? So I sort of reflect that back to everybody, and that's part of our goal, to add service and to serve all communities. So you know, without dwelling on it. So that's part of the aim of this exercise. It's not just about raw numbers, but it is about providing quality service to a lot of people. And yes, that does create impacts along the line, and that's what we're here to discuss.
Thank you. I'll go back to the library questions. If there's anyone in there that wants to offer a question or comment.
Thank you. Mark Agamy, Lee Street. Several months after the NOI was initially submitted in January, during a presentation in front of the Conservation Committee, Alistair, you stated, quote, "In aggregate, the amount of idling is pretty much the same. It's just more frequent idling." In February, during a presentation to the town selectmen, Adam, you stated, quote, "The idling that exists today compared to the idling that we're proposing overall is the same amount, if not less." The next month, the MBTA announced that idling would triple from 150 minutes to 7 hours per day. So 7 hours, it's not a question of service or no service. The choice we have is to reduce from 45 minutes to 30 minutes into Boston. We're going to have diesel locomotives idling for 7 hours a day. So my question, given that the MBTA did not know that idling time was substantially increasing, what basis does the MBTA now have for saying there's no impact to the environment, public health, and safety? What is the basis beyond MEPA financial triggers in saying no impact when its initial assessment was based on the false premise idling times will be the same?
So because the source is a train, it's not a stationary source, is regulated under FRA. And we hired a consultant and asked them your question. And that's where our emissions modeling comes from, is a consultant that we hired and said, here's our current schedule. Here's what we're doing. This is what we'd like to do. And by the way, we've been bringing in this renewable diesel, and they ran the renewable diesel through the engine and measured the emissions. And we're able to say, and we already had the measured emissions from our existing diesel because we have to. We were able to input those into an air quality model, our consultant was, and produce those results. And we are committed to bringing that renewable diesel onto your line with or without the turnback track. We are just in the process of upgrading the infrastructure to have tanks that will accept that renewable diesel. We don't need to make any modifications to the trains. They will already accept it as is. And that is actually something we want to bring on system-wide, but we are targeting the behavioral line for priority in bringing that renewable diesel.
Thank you, Sharon. Next question from the library.
Did the analysis assume the renewable diesel?
The proposed analysis did. The existing is as we are currently, as you're currently experiencing this week, and the proposed is assuming the renewable diesel, because it will be in place before we have the turnback track built.
Adam,
any other questions from the library?
Do we? Well, what? Just okay. Hang on one second, sir. There's people everywhere. Adam, do you want me to do the follow-up or keep jumping around in here? What do you want?
Happy to take a follow-up.
Okay, let's do the follow-up.
You showed a chart that showed roughly a doubling of NOx emissions, which you sort of dismissed, like dismissing a grizzly bear in your living room. Did that analysis, was it based on renewable diesel? And if so,
yes,
when will that be implemented compared to idling these trains for 7 hours?
Yes, the renewable diesel will increase the NOx emissions while reducing all other emissions, particularly the particulate matter, which was
So,
one that was
Sharon,
brought up as a concern.
sorry, can I step in there? The increased idling will it? So like for like, it's lower, but obviously we're in place for longer. So in aggregate, the emissions are more. So that's the key point. So it's just because of more duration, not because the renewable diesel increases the emissions. So I just want to make that very clear. And also that 7 hours number, I don't know why people keep repeating that one. That is not correct, and it's not what we said.
Thank you, Alistair. Nate, can we take the next question?
Yep, here you go.
Hi, Vanessa Alvarado. I live near the library here. Can you remind me, please, of the timeline for the completion of this project and when the anticipated new schedule for the 30-minute trains would start?
So,
And I have another question.
obviously, it depends on us getting our notice of intent filed in an order of conditions. So I will lay out a schedule here, but I want to give that big caveat that I don't have an order of conditions in hand. We are preparing a new notice of intent based on what we presented this evening. We intend to submit it in time to be on the October Conservation Commission meeting. Once we do our first presentation, they can continue us till the next meeting. So we're keeping in mind that the order of conditions probably won't be in hand until late fall, which is not ideal for construction. So we're expecting to do most of our work come spring, with the intention of having the track fully serviced and commissioned, which is the safety testing we do before we're allowed to put something into service, in time for us to have our fall schedule change. So we're working towards having everything built and ready so that when we do our fall schedule change next year, that the 30-minute service can be implemented.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. My follow-up question is, what commitments has Keolis made to that timeline for that 30-minute train ride? And the reason I ask is because my household takes the train. I'm one of those strange people that might make use of that 30-minute train in the middle of the day. That said, and pardon my language, Keolis sucks. The timing is terrible. The trains are always being canceled. It's completely unreliable. So this commitment to 30-minute trains, I'm just having a little bit of a hard time believing that they can deliver. And that's assuming that we ignore all of the other issues that everyone here has raised. So can you comment on Keolis's commitment to this? And I have one more follow-up question after that.
So
Alistair?
to be clear, they are the operator, and we have a contract with them, and we are the ones who set the schedule. So that's the first thing. So they don't have a choice in the matter. As to on-time performance, aggregate on-time performance has improved a lot, but that's not everybody's experience on peak. And sadly, this particular line has had a long line of upgrades, some of which have been put in place in anticipation to be able to put in place the extra service, which is rail replacement and gate replacement, and some switch additions as well already to the existing part of the line down further south towards Wakefield. Those have all caused those disruptions that you've seen. And prior to that, we actually had to run the old equipment on this line. So this line has had a history of unfortunately being the last to be upgraded. So here we were trying to make more of the vanguard, and also to make it clear they are running this every day on the Newburyport Rockport line, Beverley section, 30-minute headways, pretty good on-time performance on that line too, despite things like haunted happenings in Salem. So again, everybody's individual experience is valid, and you get bad service, you get bad service. But in a national standards, their service has improved a lot since the bad days of 2015. So.
Thanks, Alistair. Nate, go to the next question in the
Another line, so you anticipate that they'll be able to deliver here?
Yes.
Okay. My last question is, thank you. My last question is, how long do you anticipate to have these diesel trains idling in a number of years? And when do you anticipate electric trains to actually make their way onto this line?
That's a good question. As you appreciate, we're already on the aforementioned Fairmont line. We're busy transitioning from diesel to battery electric. So that's our first rollout of the electric service. South side of the system benefits from Amtrak having already built overhead power lines to power the trains. So we can use that to charge our battery trains. But the north side of the system is also slated for that same rollout. It does require us to build the equivalent or sections of the equivalent infrastructure. So no, unfortunately, it will not be quick, but we're anticipating in the 2030s. You may have seen some presentations where we're doing that, some plans we put in place to start rolling that out. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not soon.
Thanks, Alistair. Nate, can we go to the next question? Folks waiting in there.
Adam, where are you pulling it from? Are you pulling it digitally or from here?
From the library. Are there any other questions from folks?
So, Alistair, with all due respect, you gave no number. I mean, we could be dealing with these diesel trains for 20 years, 30 years. There is no commitment. Keolis is not committed. You are not committed to providing any amount of timeline for improved service in this area beyond this turnback track. I appreciate the work that you've done. You've presented a lot of data. You've done a lot of work. But there's no commitment for ongoing improvements on this line. And you have yourself have admitted that we are one of the worst lines.
Yeah,
Alistair, if I may, I think part of the conversation is that there's a lot of variables in order to get to electrified service. And so one of the things that we have to do constantly is this chicken and egg dance of demonstrating to funders, to the public, that it is worth investing in. And so what we've done on the Fairmont line is this pilot service to demonstrate that battery electric trains are something that can be a solution for folks in the future. Otherwise, we also would be having this conversation on a separate topic about infrastructure upgrades necessary to make electrified service happen. So we could be talking about a turnback track today, or we could be talking about a substation in the future. So that is not without its own externalities. And so all of those things, whether or not we get funded, whether or not we go through a community process to build the necessary infrastructure work, all of those things are a variable. And so that's part of the reason why we're kind of not necessarily skirting, but unable to provide a legitimate answer in terms of a timeline, because they all take kind of a process, and they're iterative, and they all are kind of playing a game of Plinko, where we don't know. We can put in a request. The T has put in multiple requests, whether through Rail Vision and other kind of exercises in terms of what we want to do. But those things are only as good as what the public and what our elected officials and our leadership kind of determine is a priority. So I'll spare Alistair a little bit because he's been the biggest champion of electrified service, and he wants to see it happen here in our service as well. But we are kind of debating and trying to sort through. And as you can see here, we're all here today on the Turnback project. It takes a while to build out that infrastructure and get the funding to do so as well. So there's a couple of things that kind of prevent us from being able to provide a very legitimate timeline that we want to.
Yep, I think we've done the planning to get it out there as fast as possible. I've started work on North Station traction power substation, and we've also started building out a site potentially for a rail yard for electric trains in Salem. So we're not doing it. The problem is till it's fully funded, or at least has an identified funding source to get it to the end, I can't give you that number, because I can tell you what it would be if I had all the money in the world, and I don't. And that would be 2035. But till I do, you know, what the actual date is, I can't make any commitments, I'm afraid.
Thanks, Alistair. Diana, you've had your hand up. I'm going to ask to unmute you, Diana Carter. Diana, are you still with us?
Yeah, we're all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go back to Nate. Are there any other questions in the library?
Yep. I'm going to do first hands before people who've already spoken, just FYI.
Okay, thank you. So my name is David Comito. I live on Woodward Ave. I've lived there since 1977. My first question is, if you think you can shorten and make more efficient the crossing times for the grade crossings, for example, on Washington Street and Main Street, et cetera, once you implement the new system, why don't you do that now? Why wouldn't you do that now anyway, if it's just a question of making it more efficient and have it be a test case for going forward?
We are. We're prioritizing Reading and reviewing. That's why we're downloading the data from the gates to identify what's causing issues. We have new gate equipment that we have been installing over the last year, and it just takes some time to optimize to get any bugs out. We've been working on that. And that's why whenever we hear of a problem, we'd like to know when it occurred so we can go and get that data so we can try to find out what caused the gate to be stuck down when it shouldn't have been. So we can do our best to solve and remove the problem so it doesn't occur again.
Okay,
So it is a process we are working on and it's ongoing.
But there are a couple of, so can I just add the final point? So there's one bit of improvement that we can't do till we have the turn track. And I guess that's stopping the dwell in the station. And that is part of the course for the longer gate times. So that's the one bit that we can't do till we have the turn track built.
Second question.
Also, some of the improvements are simply the train being able to go at a higher speed because it won't be doing the dwell. So the faster it's going, the less time it's in this crossing and the sooner the gates can come up.
Okay, second question. Thank you. When you did the sound study, did you use the newer diesel engines or the older ones that are much louder?
That question's been asked of me, and I think we use the GP40, the older one. I have asked Keolis to confirm that, and they haven't gotten back to me with that information. I recall requesting that they use the GP40, but that doesn't mean that that was the equipment that was available that day. And so I am trying to confirm it. I don't want to say with certainty it was the piece of equipment that I requested without having that confirmation.
Okay, last question as quickly as possible. The new diesel fuel that you're talking about using, is that going to make the trains quieter when they idle?
There's no noise impact. I think the impact was discussed on one of the other meetings. Is there's a smell impact because there's a lot less in the way of particulates. And to be clear, renewable diesel actually isn't diesel. So just it's actually hydrogenated vegetable oil, HVO.
Okay.
Synthesized.
Beth Jacob at 20 Hunt Street. Guess what? I'm going to listen to you 20 minutes every, how long? 7 hours? I want to know every half hour isn't, I've lived there 51 years and I like hearing the train, but I'm not going to like hearing it continuous, nor the people that walk down to that nice area that the town created and sit by the benches and listen to a diesel train. I'm sorry. And I'm not about to move, but how long is that? When 20 minutes is up, is another train coming? Answer that question.
There will be a train that passes during that time, and then it will return to the station.
You don't need one every half hour. Sorry. You'd be better off looking at events at North Station and putting a train on at the end of the Celtics game instead of people missing part of the Celtics game to get home. But I don't know too many people that want a 1 o'clock, a 1:30, a 2 o'clock, a 2:30. I'm so glad you say we can still have a communication in our house listening to the train.
What I said was in the backyard, outside. It will not impact your ability to hold a conversation in the backyard where it's a 5-6 decibel maximum on what we measured increase in sound.
Thank you. I think we have time for 2 more in the library room, so we'll take 2 more questions.
When did you measure that? It's a
It
very
was on
quiet
April.
street. It's not traffic. There's no traffic on Hunt Street.
Yep. So we measured it from 12:40 to 1 p.m. on a Tuesday and Wednesday in April. On the Tuesday, we had the train idling, and on the Wednesday, we didn't. So we had the 2 comparable days adjacent to each other. It's necessary to have adjacent days because if somebody's on vacation on the Tuesday, they're on vacation on the Wednesday, and you're having the same general community patterns. So that makes the 2 days comparable.
Oh, it's not 20 minutes, ma'am. She meant around the clock. No, it's 20 minutes for the train. Sharon, can you say exactly what the picture was? Because people here in the room are suggesting that you only measured for 20 minutes.
We installed noise monitors on the Tuesday morning, and the noise monitor recorded from the Tuesday morning until the Wednesday afternoon. We only idled the train for 20 minutes. And so when we're looking at the analysis, we're really zeroing in on that same 20-minute window between 2 days, because that's the comparable data. You don't want me comparing it to the middle of the night, or at a because you have different patterns of ambient noise throughout the day. So that's why why we're really narrowing in on that 20 minutes on 2 adjacent days. The monitors were there for over 24 hours.
Okay, so 2 more. I hear we got time for 2 more firsts in here. Or if there are no more firsts, we got repeats. Okay, you're a first. I'll bring it to you. You don't have to come all the way up here.
Taylor Gregory, Pleasant Street. So I just want to say that I am one of the people that absolutely would have taken a train in the middle of the day. When I used to work in Boston, I used to drive in because it was more convenient for me to drive in than trying to figure out the train schedule to get in and back. I would have been one person taking like a 10 a.m. train and a 2 o'clock in the afternoon train. It's there. The need for service is there. The reason to bring 30-minute service is so that I don't have to look at a train schedule and plan my whole day around the train schedule. Having the service at 30 minutes means I can just walk to the train station, get the train on a regular time, and it's coming at consistent intervals that you're not wondering what's going to happen. I support this. I recognize that it's going to be a lot more idling for my neighbors, but I think that there is a need in ridership, and if you build it, they will come.
Thank you, Taylor. Nate, we'll take the last new person.
Last library room person, Kevin, or Adam, rather?
Yeah.
Oh, first? Okay, first.
I'm kind of revisiting an old question. Is there any type of continuous quality improvement plan in place for the next 2, 3, 5 years, so that if you find that what you're stating to us is not working, that there would be maybe a reversal or an adjustment to your plans?
So I'll jump in. Yes, we do analyze the schedules twice a year actually, but there's also the capability of changing at other times. Just to make the commitment clear to the community, we're not planning on expanding the 30-minute frequency any more than that. We would be looking, especially given all the feedback, very intently at the middle of the day numbers. However, a lot of the benefit of this service, especially what's described as clock-based service, is that you can turn up and you don't have to think, is this now the 1 hour where it's an hour between trains? And there are a lot of riders who rely on our service, and they are non-traditional commuters, and we want to serve them. But as I say, if there is no demand, there is no demand. But I've got to say, a lot of precedent around the system here in Boston, in Massachusetts, has shown that there is a demand for this kind of thing, as somebody in the room has just mentioned. And it's different age groups, it's different backgrounds and different needs for travel. And we're trying to serve everybody equally, especially the transit-dependent people, and get people off roads. So I mean, that's just what our mission is, as you know. So we're aiming to do that.
Thank you, Alistair. And I know this is not the end of the conversation And so I'll just really quickly share one more time for a way for you folks to continue to contact us with your questions. And this is not the end of the conversation. So if you see here on the screen, MBTA_RR at MBTA.com or phone number 617-222-3030. That's reaching.
Adam, you're showing black.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's black for a
Can you
second.
see now?
There we are. Yep.
Awesome. MBTA_RR at MBTA.com, which is our railroad operations team. And so whether your question is regarding the service, or whether it's regarding the crossings, whether it's regarding environmental, we can all take all those questions in at this inbox and try to get you the answer back out to you. It's a centralized inbox monitored by multiple people with different types of expertise and can speak to the different aspects of the presentation that you saw today. We also have that phone number, and then we have more information regarding our regional rail modernization program. And so with that, I'll thank you all for taking the time on a Monday evening to meet with us, to express your views and engage with us at the MBTA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.